welcome to the MessianTics podcast, a podcast about all things Messianic Judaism. Each episode, we will be sharing our opinions as we tackle some of the biggest issues in Messianic Judaism. Now here's your hosts, Rabbis Eric, David, Jonathan, and Toby.
Good morning, everyone. Glad you're able to join us today. Today, we're going to begin our conversation by talking about something that is definitely an antics thing for us, but not only for MessianTics and for Messianics, but for the greater body of Judaism as a whole, dealing with security and safety for our synagogues and for people meeting together for worship, and even just for fun days. Like we have, for example, Sukkot's coming up. We're going to be having picnics and camping and partying and just celebrating the high holy days, and how to handle security and safety around a time where antisemitism is still prevalent and growing, particularly in North America, but really all over the world, and maybe some of the causes of that, and just how we implement those things ourselves, and how what some examples we can look to of what to do, what not to do, sort of thing.
Messianic Judaism by nature is misunderstood by many. Those within normative Judaism or non-Messianic in belief in Yeshua Judaism don't always understand who we are, and in some cases there's a violent reaction to us, and even in Israel you see there have been bombings and attacks and burnings of Messianic synagogues and things that happen. We also are misunderstood by the greater body of Messiah because they don't always understand why we would not just become Christians and live our life in that way. So we deal with those two sides on a faith-based thing, but because we are synagogues, we also deal with the normative antisemitism that comes along with that. So we have to be conscious of safety for our people. Where it may not be as big a deal to some for a Messianic synagogue being aware, situational awareness, having people in place to watch what's going on, seeing those things, we actually pay for law enforcement people to be at our facility. We have other safety devices in place and different things to be secure. And one of the reasons we're talking about this at this time is because in Pensacola recently we had some anti-Semitic attacks. We had some bricks thrown through some synagogue buildings, as well as anti-Semitic graffiti drawn and different things. So that kind of heightened the awareness. But also around the United States right now, there have been a rash of what's known as swatting, which is where somebody will call in that there's a active shooter or a bomb threat or something, and then they will, especially to congregations that have live streaming, which is pretty much what's been happening with this group. So imagine that you're live streaming your service, and all of a sudden the police come running in your doors with their weapons out, with dogs, with whatever, searching for and letting you know there's a bomb threat. So your people run out of the building and all that, and all of it is being displayed on live stream. Mm-hmm. And the people who are watching this live stream are recording your response to this swatting, and then they're putting that on their social media to share how they, in my day as a kid, we used to call and deliver pizza to people's houses to be a practical joke, or to make phone call practical jokes. These people consider this a practical joke, right, that they're doing, and I have several Messianic rabbi friends whose congregations have recently experienced this, where somebody texts the police department and said there's a bomb in this synagogue, and the police arrived. They rushed the people out of the service. They took time to search the building and make sure there weren't any bombs and all that, and it disrupted the service and all that. But all this, people are doing this so that they can watch the reaction of the congregation on the live stream, so that they can then post that as one of these internet, to try to get viral things to try to get hits and stuff on their account. So while those things are done as a prank or whatever, it is dangerous, because if somebody comes in and tells you that there's a bomb in your building, you're running out of the building, someone can get hurt by that. It's also crying wolf, because eventually if you call the cops and say there's a bomb here, there's a bomb there, there's a bomb there, when there is a real bomb at some point, the cops may think, oh, this is another one of those pranks, and the response time wouldn't be as significant.
Or it takes someone off of what could be an actual real task, and gets them over to something that's not real. I mean, it's a form of terrorism. Realistically, it's something that I don't know if it's a jailable offense, but it should be.
Well, technically, a swatting event very much is it's a felony event, because
I wasn't sure.
If you call 911 or whoever and make a report and cause first responders to have to go knowing it's a false report, that is a felony. I forget what they call it. What's the term for it? Do you remember?
False report.
Is that what they call it? Okay.
Yeah. But the problem is, in these two cases that I'm talking about that I know of personally, the people used one of those VPN things that bounces it all over, so they can't trace where it came from. If they could actually find the person. Right. But this is something that's being predominantly done in synagogues, both Messianic and non-Messianic. But it makes us aware of these things. And so there are certain things that we do at our synagogue to not add to threat stuff. For instance, our video camera only shows the platform, so it doesn't show where people are sitting, because if your video camera shows where people are sitting and they see them every time in those places, if somebody is coming in to do harm, they know where people are in the building. Right. We don't scan the rooms, so they don't know where things are outside of our bima. We don't show our children on the video, because then nobody can see the children and they're bother them in some way because they know who they are or their name. Because if you call a child up and you say, hi, this is Bobby, and Bobby memorized this, or Bobby goes to this school, or Bobby did this, then someone could come up to them outside the building and say, hey, Bobby, I'm so-and-so from here. So there are things we have to be conscious. It's unfortunate, but in our world, we have to be conscious of these things. So there are some security parameters that we put in place at our synagogue to make sure that our children are safe, our women are safe. Our children don't go out of our main building to one of our annex buildings without having somebody from our safety team. Now, in Florida, we call them safety teams. Other places they call them security teams, but in Florida you actually have to have a security license to call somebody a security person. So it's but they watch the kids going. We watch our kids if they're going to the restroom, so we make sure, because you don't always know who visitors are, or for that matter, who regulars are. Beyond, we don't know the minds of everybody that comes to our synagogue. Right. Our nursery is in an area that's locked so that people can't just enter into the nursery. Now, the nursery door is not locked, but the entrance area by the nursery is kept locked with somebody there so that people can't come in. And again, it's a shame that we have to do these things. But as practitioners or followers of Messianic Judaism, we not only have to deal with things because we're believers and we're Bible believers, which is often attacked by people in society today, but also because we're follow Judaism, which adds another level to that in the possible attacks or anger against us just because of our faith.
Right. And the reality is that far too many people have the mindset that it could never happen to us. I think in the body of Messiah, we've gotten comfortable with this notion that God will protect us from everything, right? Which is true, but also not always in this timeline, I guess is a way to word it.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, when you say God will protect me from everything, but then you look at like Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, who went through all kinds of things, and most of the apostles were martyred.
Was it Bartholomew who was tortured to death by them peeling his skin off while he was alive?
Right. So while we definitely believe that God can and does protect us, there are also things in life that happen.
And so like we've had two specific incidences at CMC over the years. One we didn't know about till after the fact, and then one that kind of happened while we were in the middle of something. And so the first that I'll talk about is, Jonathan, you brought up Sukkot, and our congregations do something relatively similar for Sukkot, and that is that the weekend of Sukkot, we open our property up for people in our congregation, and only people in our congregation, to tent camp on the property together just to build relationship and fellowship for the weekend and what have you.
Right.
So last year is the first time I've ever had this happen. Last year, we were sitting out, everybody was hanging out on, I don't remember what night, maybe it was a Saturday night or something, I don't remember. We're all hanging out, and this Jeep pulls up. It's a four-door Jeep, relatively new Jeep, pulls up to the office building behind our property, parks, gets out, and I mean, it's probably close to 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that, when this is going on. These 4 teenage boys get out of the car. They look like they're maybe high school age, get out the Jeep. They come over to our fence, and they start asking, I saw them coming, so I walked over as like a barrier to start, conversation with them or whatever, figure out what's going on. They're like, hey, what is this? And we told them, very loosely what we were doing, not in a lot of detail. Oh, well, can we come in? Can we come? Nope, this is just for people on. So you're telling me that God doesn't want us to participate? I mean, getting all riled up and just clearly trying to be obnoxious.
Right.
And I said, look, I'm not telling you any of that, but this is something only for the people in our congregation. If you're not already in the gate, you don't get to be a part of this thing. And whatever. And so they left. They go out to their car. On the way out to their Jeep, they're screaming every anti-Semitic thing you could imagine. They get in their Jeep. They pull out. They drive down the street. As they're driving past us, they're doing Nazi salutes and screaming Heil Hitler and all this kind of stuff as they're driving away. Now, we have, like Bradam, we have a very intentional security protocol. We have plans in place. We have people that are serving in that way for the congregation. And so we had eyeballs out. We're watching and being alert when this goes down. And so somebody calls the sheriff's department, because we're in the county, so somebody calls the sheriff's department. They send a deputy out. The deputy was kind of funny because he goes, okay, well, can you tell me about the vehicle they were in? And I'm a car guy, so I just laid everything out. And he was like, that's probably a little more detail than I needed, but I appreciate it. That's great. And they take off, and they have 2 cars out. They're driving around the area. They can't find them, which we knew was going to be the case because there's too many neighborhoods around us and and whatever. So they couldn't find them. They come back around. So they ended up positioning one of the deputies in our parking lot for the remainder of the night as just an extra layer to keep idiots don't do as much idiotic stuff when there's cops around. And so they stayed away. We didn't have any more issues. But the other situation we had was early on, probably 3 years into the congregation, we had a family in the synagogue that brought a guest with them. That they were, had struck up a relationship with in their community. They become, they thought they'd become pretty good friends, whatever. The guy said he was interested in Messianic Judaism, so they brought him to the service, and he comes in carrying a video camera, and he goes, hey, you're the rabbi? I said, yeah. He goes, would you mind if after the service, like I don't want to video the service or anything, but would you mind after the service? I just have some questions, and I have some friends that have some questions. Would you mind if I did an interview with you and I recorded it so that, and whatever? I was like, okay, well, what kind of questions? He kind of laid out a few of them. I was like, all right, that should be okay. I'm comfortable with that. It's not like, it wasn't anything weird. It was like, what's the point to this? What's Messianic Judaism? What's, very basic kind of stuff.
Right.
So he videos, and then later the next week, I get a call from the guy that brought him. And he's like, hey, so I need to make you aware of something. I was like, okay, what's that? He said, the guy that came on Saturday, I didn't know this when I brought him, but I found out after the fact, is a legitimate neo-Nazi. And that video that he made, he specifically did to post on these neo-Nazi websites. Mm-hmm. And so this is out there now. We need to be alert, be aware of what's going on. Now, we've never had any more issues. Never did this guy come back. Nobody else has come. But we like to think, that could never happen to us. Mm-hmm. But the reality is it always could. Like in our area, it's far more likely for our congregation to get attacked than potentially any others in the area, because we're the only, not only are we the only Messianic synagogue, we're the only Jewish congregation in our county. Right. And so the reality is and we're in South Alabama, there used to be a white supremacy neo-Nazi newspaper published out of our county and all this kind of stuff. So I already know that the attitude is there, and if they're coming to look, they don't care that the sign says we're a Messianic synagogue. They don't care that we believe in Yeshua. We're a synagogue. That's all they care about.
They just see the Star of David, and they're target.
Exactly. And so we like to think it can never happen, but it is more of a likelihood than it is not, and we need, as congregations, to be prepared, alert, and ready. As leaders of congregations, we don't need to make excuses why we shouldn't do it. We need to have protocols. We need to have plans. If you've not had a security assessment done on your property, where your weakest points are, where your most likely threats are, where things you need to have that done. You need to take that information and develop a systems. I highly recommend, and this is just my personal thing, I mean, you'll definitely want to maybe have some psych evals and such done, but I highly recommend, if you have veterans in your congregation, have them be a part of developing your protocols and systems, because the average Joe Schmo who happens to be a concealed carry isn't situationally trained.
Right. And there's some realities in this. Yep. For instance, the average police response is 10 to 20 minutes. So there's a lot of things that can happen between that 7 to 10 minutes when they can arrive, and when things begin, and so we have to be aware of those things, and very simple things like telling your people, if something, God forbid, happens, get down behind the pews or the chairs. Make your way to the nearest exit, and that doesn't necessarily mean the way you came in.
Yep.
A lot of people end up getting hurt because they run towards the bad guy because he happens to be in the door that they came into the building. So being aware of where your surroundings is, being aware that you need to get down.
It's like getting on an airplane. You all come in that front left door, but the closest exit may be the
behind you.
Right.
Yeah.
So. And that leads to, for me, the next point or another point we can make, and that's you should have a security team that is completely dedicated to security and takes it deadly seriously. I don't care if people want to say they take it too. You can't take something like that too seriously.
Right.
For instance, so our guy that we have, I'm not going to mention his name, but I get texts. Me and David, we're part of the security team group, and we get texts every Friday night about general statuses of things. And what really makes me respect this guy to the utmost is he spends 99.9% of his time during service outside, constantly watching, constantly looking, constantly checking in with me and David.
Keep in mind, we live on the Gulf Coast. It is hot 90% of the year.
He is not kidding. And why is that such a big deal? Well, because I have seen guys on quote-unquote safety teams. As a worship leader, I remember seeing a member and members of safety teams completely enthralled and lost in worship, with their arms raised and their eyes closed, or in the back joking around with each other.
Right.
And these guys guys like this who can't even tell who can't even tell someone who's got a tambourine not to have the tambourine, or if you're not allowed to bring food and drink in your sanctuary, which some have that rule.
Right. We do.
You can't. Okay. So if one of your security guys or safety people or shamashim, whatever, if they can't tell a person who brought coffee in to take it back out, then what are they going to do when an actual person who comes in wanting to kill people or hurt somebody comes in? They can't tell them to put a cup of coffee down. You're going to deal with them if they have a deadly weapon.
Right.
And my thing is that, and if you're going to come in, because that's the kind of people you need to understand that. I don't care how much you like the preaching. I don't care how much you like the teaching. I don't care how much you like the Torah service, and I don't care how much you like the worship music. You are not there to worship like everybody else. Your worship is to be vigilant and be a watchman on the wall. And I'm telling you that it was so refreshing when I was getting pulled into these conversations by our guy and getting texts from him. I was almost like, geez, man. I was like, no, what it is I'm not used to somebody whose worship on Shabbat is that.
Right.
I'm too used to seeing a couple of Mickey Mouse Club dudes joke around and cackle in the back, or have their arms raised during worship songs. I'm like, if somebody walks in, we're done. We're done. So I think it's so important to make sure your team, and Eric, you guys at Red On probably understand, you have to have some guys that are like, we are all in, this is no joke.
Right. It's because it is life or death. It really is. Now, we hope that nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
But we actually take time periodically in our service to remind people, if something happens, this is what you do. If this happens, this is what you do. Pay attention to our safety team. We have a law enforcement officer that's here. He's going to do his job. We actually had a special service. It was on a weekday night where we had Brigitte Gabriel, who's a Lebanese Christian, who does political commentary and keeps people updated on Islamic terrorism and things like that. And she came, and when she came, we had
multi-layers.
Yeah, we had police department people that we paid from the police department, but then she had her safety team, security team that traveled with her, and then we had our safety team who was supplementing also. And then we told everybody in the place, look, this is really important. I know that many of you are Second Amendment advocates and you carry concealed weapons. God forbid something happens. Do not pull your weapon and start using it unless all of our safety team, all of her safety team, and all of the law enforcement personnel are lying on the ground bleeding. Because you will do more damage. Because a cop coming in the room, if you have your sanctuary and somebody comes in with a weapon and the cops come in, they don't know who is the bad guy and who is the congregant who pulled his weapon, and they're just going to shoot at people with weapons drawn.
Right.
So there's reasons to prepare for these things, and I know this sounds like a really dark subject, but I'm telling you that the Scripture tells us we're supposed to be shepherd of our sheep, and part of a shepherd's job was to protect the sheep from the wolves, and we need to be cognizant and aware of our surroundings and have good people. No matter how large or small your congregation is, there have to be people that are looking out for your congregants. And we tell our safety team people, you're not here to watch the service.
Yep.
We have videotape. You can watch the service after service, watch it at home, watch it with you. You're here to watch the people and make sure that they're safe. And that's why we have them on a rotating basis, so that they don't miss every service, so that they can. But and there's training they should go through. Our safety team is prepared for not only a violent thing, but they also know how to do basic first aid and cardiac CPR and care and things like that, so that they're aware. Periodically, we have somebody who will be diabetic and will have an issue where they need to get some sugar or something to help them. And that's part of this team's responsibility, is for the safety and well-being of our community. And that's not always against external dangers. Sometimes it's a physical thing. Sometimes, somebody has somebody gets cut because they tripped or they did something, or
they choke on the breath mint.
Or my wife was eating a piece of chicken not long ago and was choking, and I did the Heimlich and was able to help her. But those kind of things, it is important, because we are to care for our people, our family, our community, our mishpocha. And that includes all of the scope of these things. And as people divide more in light and darkness, in righteousness and unrighteousness, as we see more uprisings and protests and all against people of faith, it's going to be even more important that we have these things in place.
And I just want to say, to Rabbi Eric's point, because you said the whole scope of these things, and I don't want to detract from, and again, I know it is kind of a dark and intense subject, I'm not trying to be a downer, but what I'm saying is I understand absolutely, as Rabbi David told his stories, and that was before I was at last year's when that happened, but the first one was before my time, but there definitely needs to be, of course, you have to look at the worst case scenario, but the whole scope also goes into what's the most what's more commonly going to happen. I mean, heaven forbid, the worst case scenario can happen, and we see that it happens across the country with people coming in, mass shootings and things like that. But they also need to be able to handle somebody like that comes in and they bust out in tongues or out of order, and you're yelling a bunch of what they see as prophecy, or yelling in the middle of the service, and they refuse to leave. And how do you restrain somebody properly? These are things you need to know.
Right. We've had people that came in
that's more common,
that had they wanted to prophesy their
agenda,
message or their agenda, and had to be encouraged to prophesy elsewhere.
Sure.
We also, the truth is that while we tend to talk about terrorism or mass shootings as an external thing, it's more likely that there will be some kind of a domestic dispute issue in your community than there is that there'll be an external terrorist or mass shooter come into your congregation.
Rogue spouses.
Spouses
and you need to know about that,
stuff. And so we have to be aware of those things. And again, this is not a fun topic to talk about.
No.
But and the reason we're talking about it is because it's relevant because of recent events that have happened that were connected to Messianic congregations. But we've had situations that have happened at our congregation for years, and there are times where something takes place at our congregation that gets handled so quickly that most of the people in the congregation didn't even know it took place.
Right, that's what you want.
Because your team does what they're supposed to do. They're on top of it and take care of it. And so
it's just handled.
Yeah, and it gets handled, and it's handled justly, righteously. Sometimes that involves calling the police, having somebody trespassed so they can't come back on the property, all those kind of things to protect the people. But if you prepare for things, if they arise, it's second nature. It's the way you handle it.
Now we initially approached this conversation. I'm going to steer this in a little bit of a different direction, just because it's something pertinent that has happened in our area recently. We initially broached this conversation from the slant of anti-Semitism on its rise, which is very much a problem, very much
I'd like to add something to that,
a real
if we
thing.
can.
Yeah, but I also want to point out the fact that safety, security, etc. of our communities isn't only against outside threats. Right. Unfortunately, there has also been a rapidly growing number of sexual victims in congregational life.
Or exposure of them.
Yeah, there's been a lot of pastors and different people, children's ministry, court, leaders, what have you, that have been busted in child porn scandals and
video cameras,
child exploitations and what have you. And so we look, we're talking about external, but there's also internal threats that we need to be alert to and cautious to, because it's not just protecting our flock from the external, but from the internal as well. And though we don't like to talk about those things, those are vital too. Like, I know you guys have a similar protocol to us. Like, nobody is in like our Shabbat school, there's always 2 people in the classes, because there's always going to be a witness.
Right.
There's always going to be protection.
Like you, we have 2 people. We also don't lock the doors. Parents can go in and check on their kids at any time. It's very open.
We don't let people in our nursery change diapers. They go get the parents.
Right. All our children get changed by their own parents, so it protects the child from any accusations, because a false accusation can ruin you as much as a true accusation can.
Sure.
So those things are taken very seriously. We're mandatory reporters. If something happens, we're not playing games with it. If there's an accusation, we're going to the police and reporting and let them investigate and take care of things. Those kind of things should never be handled in-house in a hush-hush way.
That's what I was going to say.
To try to protect people. It needs to be very open, very clear, and preserving both the knowledge that in our nation we're innocent until proven guilty, but at the same time protecting the people involved and getting ourselves out of the place of judge and letting the system work the way it's supposed to protect both the congregation, the person who may have been attacked or assaulted, and the rights of the person who's accused.
Right. Yeah, because most of the problems that have come out of the internal stuff are the people who just, we're going to handle this as a church.
We're going to talk.
We're going to have a meeting with them.
We don't want to embarrass God.
Yeah. We don't want to. We don't want to cause a stir or whatever. It's like no, you are. There's words I have for that, but
and the reality is we are in the business of redemption and restoration, and I wholeheartedly believe in redemption and restoration. But even though we are saved from our past sins, even though our sins are washed clean, even though in redemption God opens up the list of charges and it's blank, there are still consequences to our earthly decisions here and now. And if you find yourself on certain lists, you don't get to be in a place where there are children anymore.
Right. All of our children's workers get background checked. Before they're allowed to be with the children. There's things that we need to do to protect our community,
right.
And that means that there are times when people will come to our congregation that are not eligible to do certain things because of past
or eligible, and this is the thing nobody talks about, or eligible to worship in the community, in connected community worship. Like a rabbi friend of mine, Messianic rabbi friend of mine, or of ours rather, I was talking with him recently, and he was saying they have somebody who's part of their congregation who had gotten caught with some pictures and such that he shouldn't have and what have you, and ended up doing time for it and came out and appears to be, by all intents and purposes, a legitimately changed individual. And so he is allowed to be a part of anything where there are no children present. So he can't be at Shabbat services, he can't be at holidays, he can't be at any, but he can come to like Bible studies where there are no children there. He can be a part of small groups where it's only adults.
Absolutely.
Other than that, he's got to watch at home. And that's not a shame on that individual, but that's a reality of the consequences of their choices.
And that goes beyond those people to, there are times where there's a domestic issue where one or the other, the parent, are not allowed to either be in the same place as the other parent or be in a place where a child is.
Right.
And we have to be aware of those situations.
Right.
Yep.
And nowadays, I'm sure it's happened at your congregation. I know it's happened at ours. It only takes clicking Google with somebody's name to find out their history, their background.
Right.
And we need to be...
And as a parent, I want that information readily available. I want to be able to punch my address in and see how many names are in the vicinity that I need to watch out for.
Right, and so we need to be shepherds who really care about our flock. So, as you said, there's external things we have to be aware of. There's internal things we have to be aware of. There are times where we have to make decisions based upon what the law tells us.
Right, not handle things in-house.
And not handle it in-house. If there's an accusation, we need to call the police immediately. Right. It is not... Look, it is not going to be an embarrassment to the kingdom of God to have somebody arrested who's not living for God.
Right.
If they do something that violates or they abuse or they molest or they assault somebody, they're not living in the kingdom.
Right.
And they need to be treated as a wolf
in sheep's clothing.
And deal with it in that way and let it go through the legal system. And the truth is, if on the other end of that they are found innocent, and because there are times, and I've had this experience in our congregation where the mother, in order to try to get custody of the kids, falsely accused the husband of doing something when all was said and done, it had not happened. And so we had to deal with that situation on the other end. However, there are times where we have to be aware that there is abuse. And if somebody makes a claim of abuse, you act first and then deal with finding out beyond that. You protect the people and then deal with. And you call the police, you call whoever you have to. Yeah. You report the situation and you go on. Right. That's the proper way to do it. And unfortunately, especially in the body of Messiah, and we've seen this over and over the past few years, whether it's within the Catholic Church or it's within the Baptist Church, where they had a big uproar about it, where they hid abuse and stuff like that, and harassment and things. And I'm not just picking on those two because it's an across the board.
Right. It's happened in the Messianic
thing in the Messianic community. I know that it was many years ago that there was a congregational leader who was trapped in one of these stings where they set up. They have a cop who pretends to be a kid and over the internet, and then they tell him to come meet them, and he met and he got arrested and went to prison over it. So this is not. So I'm not bashing one particular denomination or faith group, right? But we need to be cognizant that sin is in the world, that people are involved in these things. We have to be aware, awake, observant of these things, and protect our children, our women, and our men in the cases where there's abuse or violence against them.
Right, and we have to be careful not to punish, even inadvertently, at least in the investigative stage, those who are the possible victims of, for example, if you have a really popular shamashim or deacon or elder, and he or she does something or is accused of doing something, by their spouse, you don't then turn on the other spouse and turn away from them, turn your back towards them because that spouse you really liked is now in jail or under investigation. Because I've seen way too many popular pastors and big name Christian leaders with book deals and lots of Bible commentaries and things do that. Like they didn't hide anything, but they punished the other person for daring to be vocal about the fact that they were being beaten at home, the fact that they were being abused verbally, emotionally, spiritually, the fact that they were being neglected, and that happens more often than we'd like to admit to. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to tag on to an earlier conversation with, just as an observation, normally we think of anti-Semitism, we think of middle-aged or older men with pointy white hoods and dark corners of the internet on 8chan, 4chan, Reddit threads, spewing anti-Semitic nonsense. Well, recently, just in the last couple of years, more of the mugshots that I see of people who are arrested in anti-Semitic crime, whether it's hate crime or whether it's actual acts of violence, because hate crime could be violence or it could just be, spray painting, someone's building or property or something. Yeah. They more often than not tend to be younger people. It's looking more and more like it's younger college students, high school students, like all of the people arrested in the case here in Pensacola that happened about a month ago. All four were teenagers, not even not even seniors in high school, I don't think.
Yeah, and there's a TikTok star, a young lady who sings anti-Semitic songs and poems where she says, she doesn't say Jews, she just says those people I can't name. At the point, but all of her stuff is traditional anti-Jewish diatribe and tropes, and she's got millions of followers, that follow her,
and TikTok's short, so it gets ate up real quickly by those who are watching. But for me, it's a little disparaging because I grew up in Germany, where anti-Semitic and Holocaust education are mandatory. So about time you turn 8 or 9, you learn what the Holocaust was.
Right.
You learn about Germany's persecution of the Jews. You learn about the Nazis' persecution of the Jewish people, and how to stand against that effectively and combat that today. So one of the other practical ways that I could suggest in standing against anti-Semitism, because honestly, like safety and security teams, if you have to use those, you've already failed in standing against anti-Semitism, because that's like last resort. That's the last concrete barrier before the security shack. One of the better ways, I think, to fight it, because I have no idea what Holocaust education is like here in America. I don't know. And all of us would be bad to ask, because
unfortunately, by the number of Holocaust deniers that are growing, I'm going to assume today not as good as it used to be.
And that's a lot of that stems out of the conspiracy theory ring, which has roots in anti-Semitism from the get-go. But the biggest thing would be to when we come around to January, Holocaust Memorial Month, put something on. Have a night or two that you can dedicate to teaching about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism. That's open to the public. It's not just for your congregation. I mean, you should teach and talk to your congregation, your young people, but there should be no excuse for why young people, young and old, don't have the opportunity to learn about and understand the horrific, awful, evil things that took place during the Holocaust against Jewish people simply because they were Jewish. And to the extent that was carried out with the pristine, refined intentionality that was carried out with. And it really is a horrific thing to do. So I would suggest this coming January, have something committed to showing people what all that is about. Particularly the Holocaust, but anti-Semitism in general. Be careful of the websites you visit. Be careful of the social media posts you share. I'll hear people talk about, in the last 5-6 years, we've seen a pretty drastic spike in white supremacist, anti-Semitic rhetoric. And activity taking place a lot online, particularly in social media circles, but absolutely in real life as well. I mean, we're a perfect example. Pensacola, these young teens got arrested for throwing bricks with anti-Semitic messages, written on them through the windows of a couple synagogues downtown and a couple other Jewish properties. So, we can combat that. But you all, to tell people, like, when you hear things, like I'll hear things all the time, like the word. I hate when people talk about, the word cabal. They'll talk about like the cabal that's running all the evil things happening in the world. That stems out of an anti-Semitic lie that's been proven time and time again to be a lie throughout history. That no, there is no ring of Jewish people running the world and causing evil, and it's why most people are like, oh, Jonathan's anti-conspiracy theory. It's like, no, I'm anti-Semitism, and most conspiracy theories share roots in some form of anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish trope, and I have zero care for that or the people who share that. Not that I don't care for their souls, but I don't care for the stuff they say. So teach on that stuff. When you hear someone says something, whether it's a saying that's popular in anti-Semitic circles, and there are things like people don't realize there are things you can say, slang phrases, that are anti-Semitic, and so gather lists of those things, teach on those things, so people are aware, because a lot of times people just aren't aware, and I think that's been made abundantly clear in recent years with the rise of anti-Semitism among young people.
And if you hear somebody say an anti-Semitic statement, an anti-Semitic joke, or share something on social media or whatever, say something. Let them know that you don't appreciate that you're against anti-Semitism and those things.
Right.
So it's just important for us to be aware of these things.
So that's going to be it for today. Kind of a long and heavy topic, but it's a topic that needs to be covered. It's definitely something that you all as individuals, as families, as congregations need to address and talk about and be aware of. And again, I encourage you, address the need for safety and security in your community, but also address the need for education in your community and make that open to the public. Make that, let local schools know when you're hosting, a Holocaust educational event, especially private schools. Private Christian schools, more often than not, I've seen them they don't even have to go to the synagogue. They'll actually invite the speaker to come to the school to teach on the Holocaust, so that way their students and their parents of the students can have an opportunity to learn as well. So I encourage you, have a plan, pray that you never need to use the plan, and have education that will hopefully lead people to not be anti-Semitic and won't be badly behaved young people. So anyway, we will see y'all again next week.
Thank you for listening to the MessianTics podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you can be notified every time we drop a new episode. And be sure to follow and interact with us on social media at MessianTics Podcast.